Okay, yes, there we are. There we are. A few technical issues this morning. Sorry, folks. How are we? Welcome to Moth News Live. My name is Keith Walsh. We will be joined by Al. We will be joined by Oscar very shortly. But first of all, I want to start off with the Noah Donohoe inquest. So it's ongoing. We've been following it here every week, and I put this package together. It's just some of the things that I've noticed about the case following the inquest, and have a look at this, and then we'll discuss it with Al and Oscar afterwards. It's the inquest, but then there's other stuff that's happened, is happening, that here at Moth News we don't want you to forget about. So have a look at this. There's another layer to this case that is less visible but really important. It's something called public interest immunity, or PII. PII is a legal principle. It allows certain evidence to be withheld from court and from the public, not because it isn't relevant, but because releasing it could cause harm to the wider public interest. And that could include matters of national security, protection of individuals, or ongoing investigations. In simple terms, there may be information that exists, that has been considered, that has been seen by the court, but that cannot be shared publicly. So when people say we don't have the full picture, in some respects, that is literally true in this case. In the hours after Noah disappeared, something happened that doesn't sit easily with people. His belongings didn't remain where they were, they moved. Two names come up in this part of the timeline: Daryl Paul and Maria Nolan. Now, it's very, very important to say this really clearly. Neither of these individuals is suspected of harming Noah. And that's been made clear in court. But they did come into possession of his belongings very shortly after he disappeared. A rucksack, a laptop, personal items taken, moved, handled. At one point, the laptop was even offered for sale while Noah was still missing. So what that shows us is it's not a theory, it's a sequence. Belongings found, belongings taken, belongings passed on. And that leads to a very simple question, not an accusation, a question. What was happening in that area, in those hours, after Noah disappeared? Because this is not the first time that questions have emerged around the case over time. I just want to look at this. In 1994, a 15-year-old girl named Arlene Arkinson disappeared. She'd been out for the evening in Bundoran. She was last seen in a car with a man named Robert Howard. Howard was a known violent offender. He was on bail at the time, and yet he was not immediately arrested. Arlene's body was never found. Years passed, then decades, and eventually an inquest concluded that Robert Howard was responsible for her death. The coroner said that he should have been arrested earlier, that opportunities had been missed, that key information had not been acted on in time. Now, these are not the same cases, and it's really important to say that, but they do raise a similar kind of question. What happens in those early hours? What decisions are made? And what happens if something is missed? Another thing I want to look at is the science, because this is where things become, for me, really difficult to reconcile. The position put to the inquest is that Noah's body was in a storm drain for up to 6 days. Now, this wasn't a still environment. This was a tidal system, a storm drain connected to water flow, where levels rise and fall. During spring tide, which was when Noah's body was discovered, water moves in and out repeatedly. This is not a static space, it is a moving, changing environment. Noah was also found in thick sludge, the kind of material that builds up in drainage systems over time. The sludge can contain bacteria, organic waste, chemicals. In general terms, environments like this can be harsh. They can affect skin, they can affect soft tissue, and prolonged exposure to water, especially in enclosed, damp conditions, can accelerate changes in the body. And yet, one of the observations discussed is that the visible effects of water exposure appeared to be largely limited to Noah's hands and feet. Now, it's important to say the interpretation of these findings is a matter for the experts. I'm no expert. But for many people following the case, this is where a question arises. If a body is in a tidal, water-filled environment in sludge for several days, what would you normally expect to see? And if what's observed doesn't fully match that expectation, that doesn't automatically mean anything definitive, but it does mean that people start asking questions. As this inquest continues, there are some things that shouldn't get lost. The limits of forensic certainty, the existence of PII, and the reality that some information may never become public for whatever reason. The timeline in the hours after Noah disappeared, the movement of his belongings, and the questions around environment and evidence. None of these on their own answer the case, but together they form the questions that people keep coming back to. Finally, inquests are not designed to tell a story, they're designed to establish facts. But sometimes, even when the facts are laid out, the questions remain. And in cases like this, it's often those questions that stay with people the longest. There you go. I think that's enough of that, lads. Al, how are you doing? Oscar, how's it going? You're very welcome. We have a packed show today, so we gotta. There's when you're in a situation where you're not looking for stuff, you're dropping stuff because you're so busy. I think we're in rude health. I think you'd agree, lads.
No, fine and dandy.
Good. Al,
hey Oscar, how's it going, Kate?
Good. Al, just on that video, so there was a couple of things I wanted to remind people of, and that was the two names that were found to have Noah's possessions in their possession. His laptop actually, that girl I mentioned had tried to sell on his laptop before he was even found. You know, in that period when he went missing and before he was found, and Darrell Paul there was found to have been in possession of some of his things as well. So it's just that stuff, and then the evidence that isn't allowed to be made public, and then the fact that the body was sitting in this toxic sludge for 6 days, yet only the hands and feet were water damaged. It's just, as we say here on Moth, we have been saying about this Noah Donohoe thing, it's too many questions. What are your thoughts, Al?
My thoughts haven't changed really. I mean, if you think of, there seems to be a complete lack of scientific approach to this case that's just appalling in terms of. I feel like we're watching like a 19th century version of Sherlock Holmes where they're trying to put the clues together, but like nobody's actually applying any kind of logic. It's kind of like, we found the laptop, somebody tried to sell it. That in itself kind of indicates that the person was unaware of the sincerity, the severity of the case, right? Because like, why would you try to sell a laptop? Do you know what I mean? It doesn't seem that they weren't disguising the fact that they had the stuff, right? I think what's more important is the point is how did they come upon his belongings, right? How was it not reported like as a separate incident? If you kind of took the reasonable man test on it and said, if you found something belonged to somebody, like that's out of place, right? You found a belonging, you found a rucksack, you found a laptop. It's kind of like your kind of natural instinct would be, this is obscure, this is unusual, right? It's not like somebody had left the bag, so like the belongings were scattered. So that in itself is a trigger warning. Are we supposed to be that naive to think that somebody wouldn't, either mention that or report it or find, if somebody else spotted it, right? Okay. The second thing is the lack of emphasis on, toxicity reports, the normal behavior of somebody, the normal kind of circumstance of somebody drowning or dying from drowning, like the evidence would be compelling. But even at that, we're still going back to the fundamental point of how is it that protocol was completely breached for this case, to the point that there was an automatic, somewhat of a kind of an instantaneous reaction to nothing to see here, no foul play. That's the unusual part of all of this. And it's kind of like if we were to just ignore, not that we can ignore it, but if we were to look at this, come at it, it's very hard to come at it unemotionally, but if you came at it scientifically from a data perspective, belongings scattered, found in different locations, found in a different place to where he was discovered, body was in water, doesn't present with the normal damage that you would expect. Okay. And then you've got a lack of, without being facetious, process. I'm being kind, but a lack of process and due diligence, which would be leading to, let's remove the evidence that points to fault. Sorry, let's not remove the evidence. Let's remove the burden of proof on the PNSI by saying there's no foul play, right? Like that's basically what happened, right? So you've got the entire team that are all indicating towards the same decision, which in itself is, if you look at the three of us here, take the laws of average, we seldom align entirely on a topic, right? Like we have aligned completely on this one. Like what I'm saying is that it's quite normal to have different minds, different mindsets, different opinions. How could three pathologists come to the same conclusion instantaneously to just ignore the data? And how did all of the investigating team come to the same conclusion? Are we to be led to believe that there isn't anybody in the entire group or team that was involved in this case that said, hang on a second here, there's some very unusual occurrences here that we need to examine?
You only come to those conclusions if you've already made up your mind before you investigate.
Oh, you're told to.
Yeah.
But surely we should be encouraging dissenting voices within organizations like a police force, because it is that thing, like, we've all seen the TV dramas where, there's, they're all protecting each other, and I've got your back, and, you don't tell tales outside of school and all that kind of stuff. But surely in this day and age, you should be encouraged, like we've spoken about before on Moth News, like whistleblowers, like people who disagree, and yeah, it's a concern, right? When everybody's just fully aligned, and you come to this inquest and everybody is just fully aligned on everything that happened, and it makes it seem a bit, you're like, well, so everyone's just going to turn up and say what they already said. What's the inquest about that? Do you know what I mean? It's not giving anybody the opportunity to say something different. I know the thing is there is stuff with that PPI or PII, whatever it's called, the protection of public protection of the public, surrounding certain pieces of information. So there are bits of information that are out there that we're not privy to, and hopefully that will come out at some stage. But yeah, look, we're going to keep discussing it. The inquest was supposed to finish at Easter, but it looks like it's going to run on a little bit longer. Oscar, you had a chat with somebody living in the Middle East just about.
I did, yeah. I'm gonna try and upload that quickly now.
Yeah, well, we can come back to that. It's just that I didn't want to. We can still see you there. I didn't want to. Can we come back to it?
Yeah, let's come back to it.
Let's come back to it. Is that okay?
Yeah, for sure.
It's just that we just there's a lot of stuff to get through today, so I know that is that going to be available for people to watch?
I can put up on YouTube as well, but just so you're aware, the guy's 17, so he didn't really want to be filmed. But the kind of general vibe from this is a guy called Muhammad. He lives in Iraq, and what he was saying is that pretty much every night he's hearing drones going over, and then as soon as his drones come over, he hears like the CRAM from American bases pulling up as well and shooting the drones out the sky. So he's quite grateful for the fact that the Americans are there intercepting the drones. However, at the same time, he wishes that the Americans weren't in Iraq, because if they weren't there in the first place, then they wouldn't be Israelis wouldn't be bombing them.
Yeah. Okay. So it's good to get. So it's just a voice from somebody on the ground telling us what it's like in the Middle East at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
In Iraq or Iran, Oscar?
So he's in Iraq.
And he's saying the Israelis are bombing Iraq.
That's what he said.
Interesting. Yeah. So we'll find out. We'll get that up somewhere so people can watch it, and we'll let them know through our social media. I really want to turn to this because, as I said, like we have a lot of stories to get to. And sorry, Oscar, your hard work is losing out here because we really wanted to follow up on Elkstone, and this legal case. Al, you know about it. Oscar, you're aware of it. This fintech execs take legal action against Elkstone subsidiary. The story is Global Shares, which is an Irish fintech company, sold to JP Morgan in 2022 for around $730 million. They specialize in employee share plan software, helping companies manage how staff own shares. That's their business. So on the surface, it's a major Irish success story, but there's also a legal case involving executives from Global Shares and a lending arm linked to Elkstone that brings us into a wider conversation. So, Al, tell us a little bit about this. I mean, interesting, because obviously we're finding out a lot of this stuff about Elkstone as we go. So Elkstone have a lending arm called Nicholas, am I right?
Nicholas Investments, yeah. So
How does
allegedly this is a one-step removed entity that deploys, I use that candidly, funds from Elkstone C-suite, including Ali Merriman, right? Allegedly, right? That it's his family office, but I'm just putting that out there. And ultimately what happens is this company would put in loans, which would be considered kind of, normal practice in relation to somebody that would be fundraising. But what's not normal about this instance is generally when these loans go in, they're quite onerous, right? And I think, look, the obvious one to point to here is, and I can speak to this myself, and I actually, Oscar, I know you and I spoke about providing the evidence, right? But I do have terms from Nicholas myself, so I can speak to it in terms of, first-hand experience where we had received a loan from Nicholas Investments into Altada with very onerous terms, right? In terms of, they had a clause within it that you couldn't bring in additional debt without, having them involved in the decision-making process. Now, at the time, I thought it was kind of benign, right? But it gets a bit more enmeshed in this one, right? In relation to Elkstone, Alan Merriman, right? A well-known Irish angel investor called Owen Quigley, who would have been a former KPMG partner. Okay, so he was one of the earlier backers of Global Shares, and this is where it gets really kind of intertwined. So Owen Quigley then, coincidentally, right, would also be a board member of Elkstone, right? Not only that, he's also a board member of ISEF, which is the Irish Strategic Investment Fund, that very frequently co-invest with Elkstone into companies, and you've got a guy on the board of both, right? Okay. And then if you look at the triangulating that, you've got Enterprise Ireland, who also get involved in those investments. And one of their key guys is involved in Elkstone at a very senior level called Niall McAvoy. So like, where do we draw the line here in terms of conflict of interest? And like, you know, you've got guys making decisions that are in the boards of both companies, right? And they're also involved. He's also heavily involved in the Dublin Chamber. I think he's actually the president of the Dublin Chamber, or was at some stage, right? Okay. So this is heading towards an undeniable trend forming, where you've now got a very successful acquisition on paper of Global Shares by JP Morgan, and now you've got, you know, some of the founding members are essentially turning on Elkstone and Nicholas to say, hey, listen, you guys caused some serious trouble in this process. Now we're trying to get hands on the records to see, but again, same fucking problem, right? Omerta, mainstream media, nobody's investigating it, nobody's digging into it, nobody's highlighting it. Like, again, it's the same fucking bullshit, right?
So it's our pal Alan Merriman, former CEO of Elkstone, still involved in Elkstone, and
still an executive director, right?
Yeah, and Nicholas is this lending arm. So where does he get the money to become effectively like? I mean, I know he used to work in the EBS, so you know he's got the experience of being a lender. But you know the EBS was an established lending institution. Where's he getting that? You have to wonder, like, where's the money coming from that a man? It's like an individual going, yeah, I'll lend you a few quid there for to invest in a company, and then also I'm involved in the company, and then also like but remember, and also this is the deal, this is this is the agreement with regards to the loan, and then that means that ultimately you can't take the loan. He's involved in every aspect of where's the line? Where are the lines? You know, what's
so it's like the money goes in as a loan, and then that's in there as kind of like
did you think it was an investment?
No, I knew it was a loan, but I didn't think it was going to be like, I didn't think at the time that this was like a doorstop for the ability to like prevent the company from getting itself out of shit, right? You know, like, because if you remember when we were heading into difficulty, and this all comes back, like, you know, as you kind of get involved in you know, other companies seem to be have had similar experience, right? And it's kind of like, I think Keith, you and I were discussing, it was like, you know, until your eyes are open, you don't really see, you're not connecting the dots, right? But we thought at the time it was just a benign put in, that, you know, a loan goes in, you pay it back out. We didn't realize like that there was like hooks everywhere, right? It's like you can't actually bring in other debt without renegotiating with them. So then it's all buying time, right? And then he raises money through his other venture, and then he invests in that on. So he's got you in equity, he's got you in debt. So it's kind of controlled by stealth, right? Like they're getting themselves into each situation very subtly that boxes you in to a point where, and look, I'll paraphrase somebody who won't want to be named, but he's a very senior corporate finance guy and insolvency guy, and he said to me one time in a conversation, he said, "Yeah, but you were trying to fight to save a company that you no longer controlled. You just didn't know it yet, right?" And if you look at another data point, would be the kind of blueprint tactic for these guys is then they, after the fact, they say all these horrible things about you, right? And the media, their jockey journalists are more than happy to report on it. But in reality, as somebody said to me recently, if all that stuff was occurring, these guys were heavily involved in the business and continue to invest in the business and were involved in at a board level, either board observer or a shadow board member, right? If it was that bad all along, leading up to the point of the receivership liquidation, how come they didn't escalate it before that? It all came out after the fact. So, if those things are true, how come they didn't say it all along? So this is a recurring theme, right? But if you look at it, if you just summarize it, we've got Owen Quigley, Global Shares, Elkstone Board, Nicholas Investments. It's a holding entity within the Elkstone Group. That's the source of funds traced back to Elkstone Partners, right? And Elkstone Partners are linked directly to Nicole Junkerman, right?
Who is best friends with Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, so it's all linked to, and there is absolutely nobody reporting on this, excluding us.
Sorry, Oscar, go ahead.
It'd just be too easy, right? To actually be like, by the way, these guys are all involved in the same thing. They're involved in the Epstein files. They're also involved in taking down numerous businesses. Right.
Well, maybe it's starting. Maybe we're starting to shake things a little bit. Like maybe things are starting to, maybe the apples are starting to fall from the tree. It's occurred to me. I know we spoke about it during the week. Does all this come back to how we handled the crash, the bailout? So there was the crash, then we bailed the banks out, including the EBS, right? Which Alan Merriman came from the EBS. He was the chief financial officer with the EBS. EBS, we know, once we bailed them out, started going after people's homes and evicting people, which we know that, other institutions did as well, but we know that they did it. I don't know. We had a figure on it? Was it 5,000 homes repossessed or something? Which, we, the taxpayer, bailed out the banks, and then they came for us, So then I know Merriman was in front of a committee about the bailout and the crash and all that kind of stuff, and nothing happened to him. So now we have this guy who's basically been told, do whatever the fuck you want, continue on, and make the rule, make what you will of the financial rules in this country. So we have set ourselves up for this, what we're experiencing now, because of the way we dealt with the banks and when we bailed them out, and nobody really was punished for what they did that led to the crash.
I think socially, Ireland just went, we need the bank to survive. Let's do everything to save the banks, and the banks just went, okay, we're going to screw you over. Thanks for helping us out.
Yeah, because if we you've looked at, Oscar, I believe you've looked at Iceland, what they did compared to Ireland. What was the difference? What were the main differences between the two countries or how they dealt with the?
So the biggest one straight of all is, like I said, Ireland just went in. We need the banks to survive. We need to bail out the banks. That's largely due to pressures from the World Bank. Whereas Iceland just decided, actually, no, we can let the banks fail, and they did. They started to jail a couple of bankers who they decided had just acted in bad faith. They also
were responsible for the crash, and
they were also just completely overthrew the government. So elected a new parliament of people, literally by the people for the people, and then they put people in jail. So they actually showed that you should, if somebody commits a crime or acts in bad faith, they should pay for it. Whereas in Ireland, the response was, let's just help out the banks because we need them. And then almost the day after, you had thousands of repossession cases. That's the core issues there.
Yeah. So the banks were allowed to fail in Iceland. There was legal consequences, and there was a different recovery path. So do you know what it looks like now in Iceland compared to what we're dealing with here in Ireland?
Just trying to find that. So in Ireland today, we have strong economic growth, major global investment, and a stabilized financial system. But Iceland took a sharper hit earlier on because they now have a reduced household debt pressure and a longer sense of accountability. So all in all, it looks like in terms of GDP, to my knowledge, that Iceland is doing better than Ireland right now.
Yeah, but also the first thing you said about Ireland,
yeah,
like what we're talking about here, we're going, things might look a certain way, but then
it just does seem like Al said it before when we were looking into the Epstein files like a couple of weeks ago. It seems that we have this culture where we don't want to like assign blame to people, and like if something bad happens, which like it's just quite on the quiet.
Do you think what's happening now, Al, is because of that we didn't do what Iceland did, that we did bail out the banks, that nobody went to prison, really?
I think if you think of it from, let's simplify by father-child relationship. So if you don't correct bad behavior continues on, and bad behavior becomes worse behavior. So yeah, I think you have a very very particular group of people and individuals that have tentacles in all of the facets of all of these different funds, right? That have a continual evidence of misbehavior and using processes to their advantage, and it's a commercial advantage, and it's an advantage in their favor all the time, right? Okay, so you've got it's a whole different level of bending rules left, right, and center, right? Okay, and I think the problem here is you have a guy that's an evident repeat offender. It goes back to the same point over and over again. In the absence of accountability, we usually rely upon investigative journalists or others to highlight the fact that there's wrongdoing, and that is absolutely absent. We do not have a mainstream media in Ireland. We have a controlled propaganda machine, and that's it.
And that's because they're all sponsored by the same people that they should be investigating. More often than not, Elkstone and similar. Like
that's a nice segue into a case that's happening at the minute, Keith, which again is, in relation to maybe we jump onto that one in a moment, Gerry Adams and what's happening there,
Yeah, I mean, like this is Oscar. I don't know if you've been following this, but we find our friend Gerry Adams is up in court at the moment. He's back in the spotlight. It's not a criminal trial; it's a civil case, but it's asking some big questions about accountability in history. And Oscar, do you have a few things that you could take us through, like just to let people know what this case is about?
Possibly. Give me 2 seconds.
I have them here anyway.
Yeah, I think if you go for it.
So it's a civil case. It's not a criminal trial. It's happening in the High Court in London. Gerry Adams is not facing criminal charges. This is a civil lawsuit brought by some victims of IRA bombings. The claim is about responsibility, not money. 3 men injured in bombings in 1973 and 1996 are suing Adams, but only for £1 each. The goal is accountability and legal findings, not compensation. So the core allegation is the claimants argue that Adams was a senior member of the Provisional IRA, possibly in its Army Council, and therefore complicit in decisions to carry out bombings in England. His position: Gerry Adams strongly denies ever being a member of the IRA. He says he had no role in any bombings. He accepts the IRA carried out violence, but he says he was not part of it. And this is the first time a court is directly examining Adams' alleged IRA role. It's about it's apparently, yeah, look, it's interesting. I mean, this is funny, the beret thing, and we're kind of like, I did on a number of occasions wear a black beret, but so did other people. Benny Hill wore a black beret too. Couldn't find Benny in a black beret, but we did find your man from Some Others Do Have Him. So clearly, when I look back at the Some Others Do Have Him, I'm just like, was he styled as a member of the IRA? Michael Crawford, the actor who played him. This is
Betty.
Betty.
It was Betty all along.
It was.
It was Betty, wasn't it? That was his wife.
I did a whoopsie, or Betty did a, yeah. The so it's odd. I understand that 3 people are saying we want justice. What is the justice for those 3 people if they prove that this man was a member of the? It's a weird
None.
place to. It's a weird place to go.
I mean, if you just think of it, this has to spark the thought process in relation to where we are. I mean, if this was another time, if the timing was different on this, we'd kind of say, okay, look, maybe there is, substance. So if we look at it from a data perspective, following the data, right? We're at a pivotal point where there is unity of Ireland being discussed. You, like, wrongly or rightly, depending on regardless of where you sit in relation to Gerry Adams as an individual, he was the spearhead of a party into the time of where he was heavily involved in peace, bringing peace to the island of Ireland, right? Wrongly or rightly, that did happen. He was heavily involved in the creation of, the Northern Assembly, where governments came together collectively. We transitioned from a very violent island to less violent. I'm not going to say removed violence, right? And, you've got a situation where who is the beneficiary of Gerry Adams going down at this stage in his career, at this stage of where we are in terms of development, right? Because for all I can see is an outcome here that's going to be pretty worrying, which is you're going to create a fracture in a party where you're going to have the for Gerry Adams and the not for Gerry Adams. And that's like, that to me is going to be the very obvious result here. It's kind of, right, we want to prove that this guy, after all this time, has been involved all along. He's been a liar all along, right? And this, it's not benign either that there was a show created about a year ago. I think it was 18 months ago. It was about the two activists in the north, the 2 girls that were identified as being bombers, and the dark featured in it a lot in the show that Gerry Adams never admitted he was part of the IRA, and had a very emotional scene where the dark is standing in prison and Gerry Adams is giving his interview, and he's like, it's a very famous speech. I was never a member of the IRA, right? And that fractured from, that was some would argue that spawned the creation of the real IRA versus the provisional IRA and stuff, right? So that in itself was a very kind of upsetting time, I'd imagine, for all the people involved. But you would imagine that was the time for this to arise, right? And then it's kind of like, also, I'm always skeptical of people coming out of nowhere where it's like all of a sudden they're being funded to bring a lawsuit. But ignoring that for one moment, I think it's really unusual that the party he's connected to have given no statement. Mary Lou, the leader of the party, has not come out and said anything, has not discussed it. There seems to be complete radio silence. There is no mainstream media really covering it. I mean, some people don't even know what's going on, right? It's, unless you're following X, the social media, there isn't really a huge amount of coverage on it, right? It just seems to be happening in the background. I think that's really unusual. I mean, he is a political leader. He was a leader of the largest opposition party in the north, right?
Well, you could sort of look at him and go, well, is he our Nelson Mandela? Is he our Mahatma Gandhi? In that, there are people in history who have been involved in an armed struggle, who have met force with force, who have met like with like, but ultimately what they wanted was something better for their people. Like, if you look at the civil rights movement in the North, Oscar, it's very much based on the civil rights movement that was happening in America at the time. That's where they took their lead from. And that's where, it was civil rights marches. That's where you got what happened on Bloody Sunday. That was a peaceful march. It got to a point where people who were involved in the civil rights movement in the North said, well, we're going to have to take up arms. It looks like this is the only way, and we're going to have to engage in guerrilla warfare because we can't take on an army, because the British soldiers came into the North and they say, oh no, we got to keep the Protestants and the Catholics apart. The Protestant and Catholics, by the way, were getting on just fine. This is the reason we're here, is because these two communities are at war, and that wasn't the case. But anyway, so then you've got this. It's happened. Like Mandela was involved in questionable things. You know, at one point he was the number one most wanted man in the world, according to the US. You know, so we're looking at somebody who was a figurehead, a spearhead, who brokered for peace.
But Keith, the point is exactly. But the point also separately is, and maybe we need to investigate this. But my understanding is, the Good Friday Agreement was kind of some kind of like
a
it was
line in the
absolved.
sand.
It was a line in the sand, right? Which was 1998, if I'm not incorrect. So like this is predate. Do you get me? Like this is predating that. So like you'd even argue the point.
How is this being allowed to happen?
What's the legal substance for that? If like, so is it a nuance that he is not, he wasn't admitted? He didn't admit that he's a member, so therefore that doesn't apply, right? But I do believe there was another Reconciliation Act in 2022 or 23, right? Which essentially was kind of like the Reconciliation Act or the Legacy Act, right? Which was like, you know, implementing a remedy for people that were in the caught in the victims of what we refer to as war, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, you know, I think there was you know, well over 400 prisoners were released, right? I think it was it was close, not greater than 500, but not less than 400, right? It's somewhere in around that mid range of 450 to 4 something, right? And again, we probably need to look into this, but like for me, the evidence points towards how did this case get through the loop to the point that the next, you know, political leader, and you know, remember the Lethal Weapon movies, where the guys I've diplomatic immunity, right? Do you remember that? That's a very famous scene. It's like you're revoked, right? Because this guy was like a total badass murderer, right? But I think in terms of absolving people of the risk where somebody's entering into negotiations, heavily involved in a peace negotiation, which diffused like war in a country, and then at the end, he's at the end of his career. Like he's not like this is you're dealing with an old guy, right? I've met him recently. We were at the Unify Ireland event, both in Westminster and in Belfast, right? And I met him at those. I saw him at those events. Sorry, not the Westminster one, but one in Belfast, yes. And he was like he's not a young man, right? And he is at the end of his career. So like, are we heading down the track of leaders that have brought peace to a country can be pursued in the court after the fact and end up finishing out their life in jail? Is that what we're?
Well, I mean, and just to cover our arse, they're just a civil case, you know. They're suing him for a pound, so it's just
oh yeah, but where does it go after that? Do you get me?
Well, like, I don't think it can go anywhere really. It's just to look. If you look at Irish Parliament and you look at Fine Gael and you look at Fianna Fáil, and especially Fine Gael, anytime Sinn Féin come up, they talk about the IRA and they talk about the atrocities of the North. Now, do we go back to the blue shirts? Do we go back to the origins of Fine Gael? Do we go back to what, you know, which sides Fine Gael took during the Civil War? Do we go back to where Fianna Fáil were and the atrocities meted out upon, you know, on people who opposed, you know, you got pro-treaty, you got anti-treaty. Do we go back that far? And is that what we're doing? Like, because if it, you know, it seems to me who's the beneficiary of you know, I think it's always been the thing where they're saying, well, Sinn Féin is the political wing of the IRA. And you're like, well, okay, well, fine. It's good that they have a political wing because they want to do things through politics and not through the Armalite. They want to put down their arms and they want to talk. Do you know what I mean?
No, but Keith, just a course correction. Like, I understand what you're saying in terms of it may not happen, but there has been cases where somebody has been found guilty in civil proceedings, and if it's beyond reasonable doubt, it can trigger a criminal proceedings on the back of that. Now
I
it
didn't
might be
realize that.
no, it can, yeah, no. Like if you're in the like, for example, like digressing for a moment, right? Our buddy in from ex-MMA, right? When he went into civil case, like if that was beyond reasonable doubt that he was found guilty in that civil case, it could trigger criminal proceedings again, right? Like where the evidence is compelling, the judge can, he can make a call to say, I'm pushing this to the public prosecutor, right, to investigate. That can occur in some instances.
Okay.
No, it's unlikely because we've got we've got this.
He's got the Good Friday
Let me
Agreement.
just get. No, it's a different one. Let me get.
Any thoughts on this, Oscar, as a man outside of who's not steeped in this history?
It's called the Legacy Act. The Legacy Act.
Okay. Point. Bygones be bygones. So like he stood up for something that he believed in. He wanted to unify the people. He just wanted to create peace, and now we're trying to chase him down. I think when you're comparing like Mandela and the civil rights movement in the US, what's important to remember there as well is that we can speak more highly of them, and history remembers them better because they were they won. Mandela overtook South Africa, so to a large part you can rewrite history because you're the victor, if that makes sense. I think it'd be a different example if Jerry Adams had figured everything out in one period.
Well, I think the fear might be, I'll come back to you in a sec, the fear might be that if you look at the strength of nationalism and the nationalist community in the north of Ireland, and you look at, there is talk in the background, a lot of talk, there's a groundswell of support for a unified Ireland. And if you look at the strength of Sinn Féin, both sides of the border, then who's worried? The Unionists have faltered ever since they got rid of gerrymandering. The Catholic or traditional nationalist population is greater than the traditional Unionist population. So things are changing, and people are losing. They're worried about a party like Sinn Féin taking over.
Yes, so that triggers another thing. It's like if we were playing a game of Cluedo. I'm not trying to I'm not trying to undermine or demean this, right? But if we were playing a game of Cluedo, it's like who's going to benefit from this? Is it Mary Lou, who's been known to wear Queen of the South outfits, right, a white suit? Is it her in the kitchen with the candlestick, or is it Keira Starmer in the cloakroom with the kitchen knife? Who is the one that's going to benefit from taking Jerry Adams out in terms of a political assassination?
Who's got motive?
Yeah, I mean, who's going to benefit from this? So it's when you look at it from a kind of a perspective of you're removing the greatest threat to a unity, right? What's the best way to dissemble that is fracture the very party that's gathering a lot of momentum.
Yeah. Would you, as a person who you've been to meetings about a unified Ireland, as you mentioned, would that be a common view within those circles that there's more to this, basically? Al.
Oh, sorry, was that for me, Keith? Yeah. There's more to this. So yeah, I think the general sentiment that I'm picking up on, and this has been in rooms in Antrim, Belfast, and others, right? And obviously we've, I've as I said, we did attend the Westminster get-togethers. That there's a large proportion of people in the north that would like to see a unity,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think our government in Dublin, again, I don't want to hold back when I'm talking about these guys in terms even the segue into the Patrick's Day celebration, Micheál Martin's interview, get together with Trump was just fucking hell, it was just embarrassing, Jesus Christ, what the fuck, I mean, I don't know who's coaching the guy or mentoring the guy, but rambling about immigration in Europe, and he didn't mention Ireland. I think I can count to one hand how many times he actually referenced Ireland. He just kept saying Europe. Europe. Ireland is its own republic as well, right? And then you have our president commenting she won't even refer to St. Patrick as St. Patrick. She said, well, Patrick in his day and then started rambling on about all sorts of fucking bullshit. Like, like we've got two of our pillar leaders on the greatest, it's supposed to be a day celebrating Irish, are just doing the opposite. Like all Micheál Martin talked about was justifying the fact that we've an open border and let anybody come in. Like, it's just like, and he's sitting across the table from, who is seen as a world leader, right? I mean, like, just in its own context, being able to hold yourself in a conversation is probably, it's his job, right? I mean, it's not like
basic,
it's basic stuff. Being able to like not ramble.
Do you think Micheál Martin went, and maybe Captain Connolly is guilty of the same thing of like point scoring? Do you know what I mean? Like, rather than thinking of what could be helpful to.
That's a fucking fantastic way to summarize it. Actually, that's exactly, you described it far more elegantly than I, Keith, right? It's point scoring. It's like, let's not talk about Ireland at all. Let's talk a lot of shite. That's the counterintuitive of Ireland, and that's just fucking demotivate people even more. That Ireland is in a complete catastrophic situation at the moment, right? Like, we've got people that, built a house without planning. The fucking house has been knocked down, or they've been arrested. But then you've got a guy like Jeff Leo, who literally set up an iPass center with hundreds of people getting paid millions of euros, and he fucking didn't even have planning for it. And they had to protest outside the place to get the decision overturned.
Now they have been going after this couple for 20 years, Al. Do you know what I mean? It's not, but I get your point. I get your point.
Yeah, but come on, let's put it.
They were living on borrowed time.
I
get your point. Right? And also, it was a fucking humongous house. Like, it was bigger than the White House.
Yeah, but moving in, fucking arresting them and knocking it. Like,
I get your point. It seems
it's far bigger fucking problems, right? It's like, okay, you built a house without planning. Okay, let's just ignore all these rich, wealthy guys that are like in the Epstein files, don't resign, fucking screwing the country left, right, and center. Yeah. Jeff Leo getting paid 9 million euros to set up an iPass center with no fucking plumbing, no running water, no septic tank. Kids going missing, kids like grass growing in the fucking carpets, and they had to pay to go and get the school bus to school. And our media are jumping all over a house that was knocked down. And then you've got the Queen of the South in the fucking picture with like a convicted fucking sex offender, allegedly, and a guy that's in the Epstein files. I mean, what a fuck it. Like, I love just like, if
Happy St. Patrick's Day week.
If this was in The Life of Brian, I would imagine that we would have these guys lined up and there'd be a fucking stone throwing situation. Or crucifixion. What the fuck? Seriously. I mean, they're just making. I mean, guys, like, I've been on meetings with guys that watched our leader or our fucking Taoiseach in that Patrick's Day session with Donald Trump, President Trump, and it's like, what the fuck is the story with your guy? Like, rambling.
It would be
like, I think
it wasn't.
Sorry, Oscar, go ahead.
It would be funny if it wasn't so tragic at the same time.
Oscar, you always bring in the hammer. Boom. It is a fucking tragedy, and like, Keith, I mean, look, as you said, we're getting into the realms now of, like, look at the frustration coming out here. You can imagine how people are feeling. You've got we've started with like the ultimate, which is a kid is dead. There's a fatality, and we're demonstrably failing a citizen of our country with even just the basics. Answers, 6 years to get fucking answers. Demonstrative failings of a whole different, like, of a demonstrative proportion, as we said last time. Then we've got our leaders absolutely embarrassing us on a global stage. And where's the balance? We've got a guy that's running riot in the Epstein files, hasn't had to resign. They're celebrating the appointment of the CEO. And now you told me just before we joined that the new guy that came in, who, by the way, was involved in the Ulster Bank fucking scandal, right, is the new CEO. He's supposed to be the clean guy, is now just announced a massive
They've announced
fund.
200 million investment into backing entrepreneurs in the north,
So pull back up that picture again. So we led to believe that picture with Mary Lou and Alan Merriman, that she doesn't know him and that's benign, and then all of a sudden he's fucking publishing funding into Belfast.
Well,
He's involved with social housing. I mean,
could I play devil's advocate and say Mary Lou is just in a picture with some guys, and it's just like, do you know what I mean? There's nothing more sinister than that. She's just like she's not even sure who's in the picture.
Yeah, but why were they in the picture together? What happened before that? They were having dinner or lunch or something, right? So like they obviously spent a bit of time together. They didn't just arrive for the photo shoot, did they?
No, but some guy turned up and said, "I'm investing 200 million into entrepreneurs in the north." And Mary
he's getting a big hug there from that, whoever that dude is. Maybe we could identify who the dude is giving him a hug, because he looks very happy.
Can I ask you a question? Why is Alan Merriman so badly dressed for a man that has so much money?
Because it's a problem with rich guys. They've got no fashion sense.
He looks like, you mentioned the shirt before, Alan. It's like, where did he get the shirt from?
It's not his money.
His trousers don't match his jacket.
He's the banker. You saw it in the files, Keith. Why are you even asking that? He's the banker. Franco Wanker.
But
he's the wealth guy, man.
He must be making a few quid enough to buy.
The poor guy. Come on.
He must be making a few quid enough to buy a decent suit.
The poor guy. Come on. He's the fuck. They're not making money. Their investors have. I'd love to invite his investors onto the show, and can one person come forward and tell me they actually got a return on investment from the money that they gave this guy, and defend them? I haven't had anybody reach out to me defending. I've had lots of people reach out to me saying, "Holy fuck, I always knew that this guy was a dickhead, but I never realized he was the dickhead."
Yeah.
Shouldn't that, like, at some point, after we continuously just take people's money and fail at giving it back to them, at some point shouldn't you just face criminal charges? Or are we just calling it bad business every time?
Listen, they're like, the people are so fucking.
No, we have to go after. We're too busy going after Jerry Adams.
But they're going after a political leader, and as you say, Keith, I mean, in fairness, as I said, we have our very healthy debates here, right? You worded it really well. You said, what's going to fucking come of it? Nothing. It's a nothing burger, right? It's just complete fucking propaganda, and it's not even helpful in the current situation, right? Where it's like, if this was a normal course of action, right, we would be already investigating extensively and intensively all of the people that in Ireland were mentioned in the Epstein files, and fucking bringing somebody before the courts of justice. We would be launching a forensic investigation team to find out every startup, every company that they corporate rated, every company that they used the insolvency practice, like the likes of, as I said to you before, the fucking John Healy liquidator that's been named in a number of cases now already and has already been removed from a high profile liquidation, right? And, we'll be pursuing him as well, right? Who's looking into that? Say, okay, guys, all the dots come together, and, sometimes 1 and 1 does make 2. That's it. We don't have to look any further. Money moving. It's been used for ill purposes.
Yeah.
It's the same names popping up every fucking time. But here we have again Charlie Taylor, Ian Curran, Tom Lyons, no journalist cover, nobody talking about it, celebrating the appointment of a new CEO. Then we're supposed to just sit here and say, oh, that's a complete fucking coincidence. They've just announced that they're putting, is it 200 million into the North in the fund, and they've just been approved for a significant real estate development. I mean, are we supposed to be completely fucking stupid?
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, and then you got our fearless leader. Then is fucking. I don't know if you could play a snippet of that, but it's like, Jesus Christ. If we're in the medieval times, man, I think we'd have they'd be queuing up to fucking invade Ireland.
I want to finish off on a high.
Is there any to be had?
Is there anything to be had?
Yeah.
Be gentle with Oscar now today, man. He's gentle.
Finishing off on a high. Yeah.
What's the high?
Well, no, I just want to finish. It's not a high. It's something useful. So the story of the ESB glitch in the meters. So basically, the ESB have installed these meters into every household across the country, and these are high tech, newfangled meters that will basically tell you how much you owe. And basically there's been like real big problems with these meters. Like one guy a couple of weeks ago got a bill where it said that he'd used a year's worth of electricity in one day. These things do not really work. But up until this point, the ESB have said, no, that's grand. It's a problem with you guys. So basically I talked to this woman called Kat, who's on social media as Castle Quarter House, and she just has given us a tip on what to do if you're it's a helpful, it's moth being helpful. This is a problem the Irish people are dealing with. We're going to try and fill in where other people aren't, like the ESB, and try and give you something to look for if your ESB is inordinately high. And this isn't a funny thing. It's just me talking to somebody who knows about smart meters that aren't that smart, and she's just giving her thoughts on it. That's it, guys. I'll finish off on that so we can say goodbye. And I hope you enjoyed your sim.
But just on a very tough note, I mean, like,
yeah.
Electric Ireland have had a very.
I mean, it's been tough. It's been tough.
Very. I mean, like,
providers.
Their group is only turning over 7 billion, right? I mean, that's fucking tough going, man. Like, it fell 19%. They only made 700 million profit.
Yeah,
come on,
it's tough. Have a look at this. Actually, maybe you might enjoy this as a tech guy.
ESB. So basically, our meter talks to ESB. I don't know how this exactly works, but our meter takes the data from our house, talks to ESB, and ESB talks to whatever provider we have. But if that connection is lost between our house and ESB will just do this is what she normally uses on a normal day. So we're going to send that. And then sometimes it doesn't get updated. So if you're in an area of the country where your internet is quite bad, they can do a test on it to see if you're having internet connection problems. Because apparently if you have internet connection problems, that's what causes it. But I'm still like, there's too many, like, can we not just have something where the thing clicks up?
She's right. She couldn't articulate what she was saying.
That does.
Al, you're a tech guy.
No!
These
doesn't work.
These are smart meters. Smart meters.
Bullshit.
But if the internet is down,
they would have a fucking latency where when it comes back online, it would just send it. Like, they're not getting billed real time. There's a bill is calculated on a cycle, right? So it's like press thing, it comes in, like re-estimate. It's called an estimated bill. But what she's talking about is it's speaking to the grid, right? So it's on the power lines, because what people don't realize, and this drives me fucking crazy, is that there is no deregulation in Ireland, because the warehouse, the actual people that control the telco lines and control ESB lines are the same fucking company. They're just deregulating the final part.
Yeah.
They all have to run through the same lines.
Yeah. Can anybody remember, Oscar, you won't know, but why did we hand over the power of why can't we should be providing ESB for Irish citizens for not for profit?
Do you know who owns those companies? Go off and research, man, because that's a whole different show, right? But not only that, here's where it gets really fucking interesting.
Who did we sell the crown jewels to?
I go and check it. I will cover it off next show. I can tell you offline. We'll have to validate that they still own it. But like literally, our utilities and ports have been like flooded out the door for a long time. But here's one that will really sicken to end on a high note. So then somebody in their wisdom, when they decided to sell all the shares for Aircom, if you remember that, and everybody was running out buying Telecom Air and fucking shares, the whole like, right? I thankfully I didn't, and people were using like their pensions, their fucking savings, horrific, right? And again, nobody was found accountable for that. It just get on with it. Sure, it wasn't our fault.
As we say in Ireland,
during that process,
sure, look it.
And what people don't realize is that Aircell was the most powerful mobile phone network in the fucking country. Somebody decided to sell that for a write-down to Vodafone during that time, and people don't know that. And that's where Vodafone network came from. It was the most powerful network in the country that was owned by us, by the state, right? And that was private and was sold. And then we ended up with a fucking substandard network called fucking Meteor. That was 085. That was like just a complete shit show, right? So there you go.
So basically, this woman, what's that, Oscar?
So basically, there is no high note.
Yeah, Oscar, stay where you are. Don't move to
How is
Ireland.
that a fucking high note? Jesus Christ!
So
You've just fucking agitated me.
And finally, like our last bit needs to be something positive, like something about nature, like an animal.
But Oscar, that hits a trigger for me, and I'll tell you why. Right? Why it's triggered? Because I've been very fortunate, met some very nice people, some wonderful people over the years, right? And I remember a guy in particular had to leave Ireland, 3 kids, because he was working in a services job. And the sole reason he had to leave Ireland after 16 years living here and go back to Italy is because he couldn't afford to maintain his fucking utility bills, right? Literally, like if you ask people to come on and give you an idea of how many businesses and how many people are in financial difficulty on every month because of the fucking charges these guys are fucking
and look at
pushing
how
on
much
them.
they're making. Yeah, it's crazy. Okay, here's the high bit. This might be helpful to people.
If you have a heat pump, I would start, for lack of a better word, messing around with the settings. Trying to figure out, look at your energy data and see if it changes, if you reduce the curve or if you reduce the degrees, and see if what's starting to work for you, or Google it, or contact someone who has the exact same one and see if they can get it to work. The other thing is, if sorry, just noise there. If you have a smart meter and you genuinely, like, there are people messaging me saying they have bills of €2,500 in a 2,000 square foot house. I'm like, that can't be right. Like, there has to be something wrong. So if you do genuinely think that there's something wrong with your smart meter, you can contact ESB and get a monitoring unit put onto your smart meter. And if there is an issue with the smart meter, then they will fix it. And if there isn't an issue, then you have to pay €199 plus VAT for the monitoring. So there are options out there.
Right, okay.
But I think, I don't know, I think, like, I have a feeling that it's something like, and I think it's going to come out in a few years' time, that,
Yeah, she's
like,
getting
it's
there.
just a
Yeah,
little
we're getting
small glitch on their end where it's like the information isn't transferring from ESB to the customer bills correctly, and it's just like a decimal point or something like that that's wrong. But because I've no evidence of it, but this thing that has happened now on Friday has at least shown that it is a possibility that there could be something wrong on their end.
So, like, we were talking, sorry, like, can I just remind you what we're talking about? Smart meters. Smart meters, right?
This is what happens when
Now, she, like, Kat, in fairness to her, she's trying to help people, and she's figured out that if she goes to her heat pump and messes around with it, nobody should be messing around with their heat pumps. ESB should be very clear and going, this is what you, like, these fucking smart meters. The older meters were smarter. The older meters where the man went around and opened the box and wrote down the thing, that was smarter than these smart meters. Like, why are we so backward?
This is what happens when we put tech in that Al hasn't invented. It just doesn't work.
No, but Oscar, for in fairness to him, right? If he was, we don't put people like Al in charge of these things. And you start thinking, well, do they want the smart meters to not be that smart and for people to be paying a lot more money than they should be paying? Is it okay that those mistakes have been made? Is it okay that people who are in the lower socioeconomic part of Ireland in our community who have to put money into their meter to get electricity, is it okay that they're charged more for electricity by those companies? Maybe it's okay that we're doing this to our citizens. You know what I mean?
Well, we're opening up a very topic for me, Keith, which is if you go back and look at Tesla research, right? Stuff I'm working on at the moment is quantum, which will blow your mind in relation to you don't need to be charged electricity at all because it's actually accessible.
It's out there.
I wonder.
We could do a special on this.
I have kicked off my my test journalist agent, and I'd say she just to personalize it, has found an interesting pattern, right?
Were you able to finish
Which
on a high,
is-
Al?
The ESB, when they pivoted to Electric Ireland, were receiving funds from ISEF, which is linked to the board of directors of Elkstone. So there's always a connection back to pocket.
Shut the fuck up.
I'm serious. I found it accidentally. Literally, I fucking shit you not. The ISEF has been funding the infrastructure for ESB. So, I shit you not.
Everything comes back to Elkstone. It's just like it's amazing.
Is the clue in his name Merriman, like some kind of Pied Piper?
What was that?
Oh shit! What happened to that again? Yeah, but it's the transverse to that. The Piper brought the rats into the river to drown, but Merriman is that's too sinister.
Yeah,
I'm going dark. I'm going too dark.
Okay, well, that's something we can look at. Maybe Oscar, you might have a look.
He does
at,
look like a rodent, actually, in my humble opinion.
I mean, he doesn't look far.
You're not.
I mean, I don't want to be. I don't want to attack the man, but let's attack the man. Yeah, you're not wrong.
I don't attack the man. I just think he's just like.
No, I'm saying I wouldn't normally attack the man, but I think you're right.
As the guy said years ago in the O.J. Simpson, if the glove fits,
wear it. Don't wear it.
You must have quit.
You must, if the glove fits, you must have quit. That was it. Oscar, thanks very much for joining us and keeping us straight, for being our
That's
journalist.
Kim Kardashian's dad, by the way.
Yeah, it is.
To use this information. Yeah. So she's accidentally famous. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it her? Is it her stepfather or her father?
Well, whatever. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I think
sure.
her mother married him.
She calls him dad, right? And then, did you know that Kim Kardashian was Paris Hilton's PA, and that's how she became famous?
I think she became famous for a slightly different reason.
No, but that was the start. That was the gem.
You're talking about that sex video, aren't you, Oscar? That's filth.
Oscar,
filth.
keep it
Oscar.
fucking clean now, buddy.
Filthy.
You're gonna fuck's sake. Jesus.
You're supposed to be in charge of us.
Where's the class, man?
I mean, I'm saying that's like turned it into a media scandal.
Yeah. Well, the other we knew what you were talking about, though. That's worse.
So, what's the summary? What's the summary from today, man? What did we learn?
We're all fucked.
Come on, Oscar. We're finishing on a high, but yes, we're all fucked.
Einstein was right.
I know.
You probably didn't recognize my T-shirt today, did you?
Oh, good man. Yeah, I couldn't see the top of it.
It's one of those ones that it tests your IQ if you can actually see the formula and the image.
If I work it out.
Can you see what it is, Oscar?
Yes.
It's the infamous
E
picture of
MC squared.
Einstein sticking out his tongue.
E equals MC squared.
The law of relativity, my man.
I think what we learned today is that there's stuff there to be uncovered, and we're uncovering it, and let's keep uncovering it. And it's not that everything's bad. It's just that let's look at where it is bad, try and uncover some information on it, try and get some things shifted, maybe try and get some, people brought down, and make the country a better place. And that's all we can do. And we're just doing our little bit in our little corner to try and make the world a better place.
Well, we want people to start standing up, right, and think that they have a forum to do it, and hopefully they see us as a medium to do that and get access. And hopefully, Oscar and Keith, as you guys are progressing with independent interviews and exclusives. I mean, we are going to start pivoting into demonstrating that we have actually been responsible for quite a number of exclusive, news items over since we started, and we're going to continue on that path. But we'd be delighted to see if people can start supporting, essentially, you guys with, let's get the real data right. I mean, it's out there; people are aware of it. They don't have to be afraid anymore. Let's speak up to these guys. They're not untouchable.
Come talk to us. Come and talk to us.
They're not untouchable, right?
No. I mean, it's people feeling like they can't speak out. That's what keeps them in power. Thanks, guys. Oscar, have a good weekend. Al, have a good weekend. And
Oscar, feel better soon, man.
Yeah, sorry that you're sick, and thanks for joining us. And
you did very well, by the way.
You hung on in there.
20% of you is better than 100% of these other guys. So well done.
I appreciate it.
We leave it at that. See you guys.
See you.
On that bombshell, is that
on that bombshell? Good luck. I better say goodbye. It's gone way over.